Hello and welcome back to Pensive Podcast. I'm Chloe and I'm the host of this podcast. I created Pensive to help you feel more creative and at ease with your creativity. And I also created a framework that is mindful, productive, and relaxed. So if you're interested in that, please check out pensive.studio. Today's topic is about the necessity of art. And it's something that I don't actually think about personally myself, because to me, art is always necessary and creativity is something that comes so naturally. I think the world right now appears to be very much in a time of chaos and confusion. And at times of extreme crisis, people lean towards order and what will create more stability in their lives. And art is not perceived to create stability or financial stability, especially for a lot of us. It's perceived to be the thing that you do when you have time and you have the freedom and you have the money. So you already have the system set up in place to support you outside of you doing your art. Your art is a thing that is I guess, considered a luxury of time and freedom and space and free will, etc. But I want to challenge that. I want to think about it. I want to talk about how art is actually something that can, and I truly believe does, help us, especially in times of confusion, crisis, whether that's global or personal. We can scale it up, scale it down to the macro or micro level. The art functions for any cause. But first, to preface this entire conversation, I talk about artists and I talk about creatives, and I know that a lot of people will feel excluded from this conversation because they feel that they're not an artist or a creative. I'm going to be one of those boring people who uses the same phrase, the same words that everybody else does when talking about this topic. Is everybody is a creative. I believe it to be true. So there's no point changing the phrase, the words when they work. I think everyone has the innate capacity to create. Creation comes in any form, in any way. It's not just about painting. If you ever saw painting or drawing that I have produced, you would logically conclude that if those were the defining factors of artistry, then I would not be an artist for sure. I am quite incapable of drawing or painting anything that looks like something. That's a fact. But I still hold myself true to the label of artist. And it's funny because there's a podcast episode I did before, I think, about coming to terms with this label of artist myself, because I, again, put it on such a high pedestal and I thought I had to do X, Y, and Z things to qualify in order to be an artist. And even in that video, I think I said, okay, I'm claiming this label of artist, but it took several months of percolating and conceiving and thinking, etc., to actually allow myself to be that thing. So even when you say, hey, I'm an artist, it does take a while for it to sink in before you actually start believing it. I actually wrote down my thoughts about being an artist and my pitch for why you should consider yourself a creative. So here it is. Pursuing a life of art feels entirely irrational, but it's not. It's natural to create. We are creative, expressive beings. Here is my pitch as to why you are creative, even if you think you're not. I'm not talking about painting, collage, or even dance. Look around you, and if you're in your own space, you'll see things that you chose. Maybe not all of it, but even within the space or the things that other people, like the things that they've contributed to the space, there'll be flashes of you. There are breadcrumbs you leave of yourself everywhere you go. A conversation you had sparked an idea within you or a friend, a new addition to your favorite recipe, a new color that you're wearing that brings out your eyes, an idea that you had that inspired your team. You're the creator of your life, and you don't need to have evidence on a page to prove that. That's my pitch. I hope you are sold on you being at least creative. You don't have to go as far to say that you are an artist, but at least claim the very real label of being a creative person. I think it's something that a lot of people struggle to identify with, because the label of artist and creative creates ideas of people who are validated by establishment, like in a museum or an art gallery, or someone who spends all of their time doing these things. Like they have a studio and they go to this studio every day. And I think being a part-time artist is as much an artist as a full-time artist. You're still creating and you're still coming up with ideas and making things and all the things that come along with being creative. And in your day-to-day life as well, like I said, painting is not the evidence of a creative life. A creative life is right there. It's the words, create, making things, doing things, and enjoying it. And enjoying is part of the creative process. So now that we've established that you are a creative person, whether you like it or not, within today's framework of conversation, you are creative. So just let it be true. Just let it be true for the next, 30 minutes. So now back to why art is necessary. And I want to take a weird example. So have you ever seen those videos about like a couple living in a shipping container that's abandoned, or like an abandoned school, or someone like living off grid and creating like, what's it called, like circular farming or something? They're like self-sustaining, like everything they do for them. So they grow their own food and they have their own farm and everything. Or someone who I once saw someone who blows bubbles for a living. Like that's their career, that they get hired to blow bubbles. And I think I saw that it was in the context of a documentary about maths and how maths underpins everything. It might have been that I could be making this up, but I remember I was watching something specifically about hexagons and maths. They used this person who was blowing bubbles to demonstrate how when you blow, no matter how many bubbles you blow, it all forms a hexagon, and hexagon is like the mathematical shape of or is it pentagon? Maybe it was a hexagon. I can't remember the shape that honeycombs form as well. Anyway, the point is that there's like one guy who blows bubbles for a living. He enjoys doing that. Probably not a lot of money. He's probably not a bubble billionaire. That's his life. That's his art, and that's his craft. And why knock him for it? I think of these people. I love these people because they look at this game of life that we've been told to play. Like, these are the rules. Set up, put your piece on the board. These are the steps you have to take. I don't know if that game's Monopoly or chess or whatever. You can decide the game. Whatever representation of the game that is your life. I feel like they looked at this board. They said, no, I'm not playing. I'm going to go outside and skip rope. These are the people that are the disruptors of I'm going to sound like the Joker, society of the world. And I use this word intentionally because there's a lot of disruptors in the, I guess, is it the tech space? It's all about disruptive technology and disruptive innovation and how they're going to disrupt the market. I'm clearly not a tech person. I don't know how much the market or the tech space has been shaken by all those abbreviated letters like BASSC, all of those things. They don't make sense to me. It's not my world. It's someone else's world. And obviously people in tech are very creative. They've come up with things that we couldn't even conceive of even 4 or 5 years ago. But I think there's so much honest life and honest living and artistic living in the people who have absolutely just said, no, no, this is not what I want to do. This is not what I'm doing with my life. I'm just going to go. I'm just going to go over there. I'm just going to do this thing only I like doing, or I have the courage to do, and I'm going to do that. And the reason I bring this up, because I think the words that kept coming back to me when I was thinking about why do we need art now, the word is disturbance. The word is disrupt, like true, just forget everybody, disturb the peace. Like that's what art is good at. That's what art does. It has the capability of saying, hey, no, I'm either not going to engage, or if you make me engage, you better be ready for this. You better be ready for the consequences, because I'm going to hold up a mirror to what it is that you're doing. And I'm going to show you what's going on. And I'm not talking about specifically art that's made to like shock, you know. I'm not talking about extreme performance art or something like that. Even just in the very nature of disengaging, if you're going to say, hey, I'm going to make crochet today, that in itself, that artistic endeavor, that plight of wanting to just sit there and disengage with whatever is being imposed upon you, that's disturbing the peace as far as I'm concerned. That even in the microcosm of the individual self, you choosing to make a jumper is enough to live an artistic life and claim that artistic self, and B, to disturb the peace of what you've been told to do and how you've been told to fill your time. Especially with all this talk of, like, we know at this point social media currency is attention. If you're on your phone, then they're winning, you know? So in that case, it's about the reclamation of your attention, the reclamation of your time, the active choice, the active act of creation, the rebellion against a fast, let me just continue with the knitting and crocheting example, the rebellion against like a fast fashion model, the rebellion against fast life and things having to be done now, the rebellion against unsustainable, unethical practices. Like there's so much going into the act of one person knitting a jumper, not for selling, you don't have to sell it. This is not a business model. You don't have to, you can. But just the act of one person choosing to do this one thing for themselves is disturbing the peace. That's where we all start. That's where we all have to start before we can build towards a larger movement. Movements are always started with the individual. It's about coming to terms with what you can do and what you want to do, and living a truly individual life and a truly creative life. That's where it all starts. And then the hive mind kind of comes into effect, and everyone starts to say, well, if they can do that, then I can do it. And then people start wanting and doing and living the way that they want to live. And then we're all happy and we're all doing our niche, weird creative thing. When we're doing that weird creative thing, we're being ourselves and enjoying ourselves and living the life we want to live and spreading the joy and love in the truest hippie fashion. It's the 60s again. I watched a talk by Amy McNee on YouTube. She gave a TED talk about why art is important. And there was one point where she said that art brings order to the chaos we're experiencing. And I actually believe that it's the reverse. I believe that art brings chaos to the order that has been established. there's just I don't know when this episode will come out and what will be occurring on the global stage at this point. All I know is that everything on the surface looks very chaotic. It looks very much out of our control. It looks very like, what's going on? But not to put my tinfoil hat on here or anything. But there is, there's people in power. They know what they're doing. They know the consequences of their actions. This is all premeditated. Tinfoil hat. I'm sorry, guys. Nothing is done irrationally. It's all very calculated, unforgivable messes that we have to witness. These are the calculated consequences of meticulously planned actions. But that's the order on the surface from the chaos on the surface from the order that's been established. Back to the art stuff. Tinfoil hat removed. In response to this chaos, I also do this because I made a method of a framework in which to create some kind of organization, order. Within that, I recognize the necessity of chaos, and that's where the art lives. That's where the messiness lives, and that's where the process lives. I'm not saying to create structure in your life in order to be a rigid, structured person. The framework is there so they can create the mess within. Like, that's the whole point of what I'm trying to do. I think that's my artistic purpose, is trying to create chaos within the order, within the chaos, or something like that. Art is process. Art is not a smooth, shiny end product. It doesn't have that veneer over it. It's messy. It's so messy, and it doesn't comply. Art does not comply to the status quo. Art doesn't comply to the order. You can plan as much as you want, but as soon as you get in there and you start making, things change and things shift, and you start lighting up from within. You start thinking, and all these different ideas and these different parts of you, these different experience come together to create something. I understand what she means. It's taking the time to do and make the art. That's your order. You said, I've decided to do this, therefore I will do it. This is the order. This is the construct, the framework of the time that you've separated for yourself in order to create art. That's the order, right? Understand? But in order to truly encapsulate art, you can't. The only thing that constrains it is time. Everything else within the artistic process is pure chaos. Maybe you say, okay, I've got 3 hours to do this. That's the order part. The rest is madness. The rest is non-compliance. And it's that non-compliance that rebels against the imposed order. So living an artistic life is the non-compliance to the imposed order. This is why being an artist is necessary. When I say it's not just about making art and making a pretty painting, it's the rebellious act of, I made this painting, I went through all the steps, someone's trying to talk to me about something, but I'm doing this, I'm in my process, I'm creating, I'm delving within my own chaos to make this thing. In order for things to quote unquote function, making crochet supposedly doesn't add to that. I don't know why I keep going back to crochet. I think I'm mostly talking about the indirect nature of art creation. I'm not talking about actually going to people and saying, I don't like what you're doing, I made this art. But there is that aspect of it also. I read a book by Sarah Corbett, I hope that's the right person, who created this movement called craftivism. They've got a book about it you can read, and how if you are wanting to be more of a activist in your art with a specific purpose. The term craftivism wasn't coined by Sarah Corbett. It was, I believe, Betsy Greer. So it's something that's been around for a good at least 20 or so years. And people have been using craft as a way to, I think Sarah calls it, gently protest against anything. Using embroidery as a way to deliver a beautiful and concise message about what it is that you want to talk about. I think one of the most poignant ways that this was used was, I think Sarah and a group of people got together and embroidered and made like handkerchiefs for different members of, I think, a council or something, and then presented each member of the council their own handkerchief. And they took the time to research this council member and what they would like and how they could reach them through the act of craft and embroidery and art, and using like a specific color palette or a specific message, like appealing to them in a certain way. It was very interesting because the takeaway was some people, like some of the council members, they remembered it because it was so personal, and they kept the item because it meant something to them as an individual, not just like appealing to them and their position, but to them as a human. And that's what art can do. It appeals to your human sensibilities. So when you receive something like that and you think so much time and effort and care has gone into it, and this person hasn't, well, obviously they've made it because they want to persuade you to do or not do something that you're about to do, but also they want to have a dialogue with you. They want to have an open conversation with you about this thing in a very human and creative and fun way. And I think the other things I've been reading around this, and in the Substack post that's going to accompany this podcast, there's something that James Baldwin said in his essay about the creative process, which is something I referred to earlier, which is about holding up a mirror. And this mirror is not to judge, it's just to present. It's non-judgmental. And that's what art is. It's a reflection. So if your takeaway from this mirror is what you're doing is unhelpful, then that's your perception of the art. That's you are reflecting your own wrongdoings back to yourself. But if you are able to somehow frame what you're doing as fine, then that's the art. The art isn't there to tell. I think that's where art sometimes struggles for me. If it's so obvious in its message, obviously, like everyone, like artists have a purpose when they're going into it to say like this is my idea and this is what I believe and this is what I think, and they will imbue that message into the art. But there has to be some leeway for people to project their own interpretation onto it. And so, especially within the kind of artivism, craftivism sense, there needs to be room for a separate projection, not just your own artistic integrity and view, but the person receiving or the person viewing that art, there needs to be some kind of room for their own projection. Despite saying all of this, I'm not someone who is often in a position of protest. I am not someone who uses my art in order to directly protest. I think I'm more of I do art because to me it is chaotic. I think my artistic mindset is always, I am a harbinger of chaos. The fact that I'm making this is chaos. I don't like listening to what people tell me I have to do. I don't care. Like I couldn't care less about what I'm supposed to be doing. And part of that is creating art. And right now my art is writing. I do a lot of writing. So I think that's why for me, it's the claim of the art is quite difficult because it's very much behind closed doors and very invisible because it's a long process. I'm also hand making a book, I guess, but that's very much more traditionally art creative, and that's also taking a long time. It's all a process. For my own artistic pleasure, I love just the idea of knowing that what I'm doing is fundamentally chaotic. It's disturbing, it's non-compliant, it's just it's the ultimate, like, you're not supposed to be doing this, and even worse, you're not supposed to be doing this all the time, which I will. Like, I will never not do what I want all the time. For me, that's living an artistic life. That's living a life true to my values, true to my own freedom. And I'm not, this isn't like, I acknowledge I have responsibilities both to mostly to myself, but also to other people. Like, you know, I do the things that I'm meant to do, but with my freedoms, I do the creative things and take creative liberties, is what I'm trying to say. So to go back to the original question right at the beginning of this podcast, is art necessary? Absolutely. You as a creative, you as a person, you as a human being, you with all your flaws, with all your capabilities, with everything that you have the ability to create art, do the things you want, live the life you want, not follow the rules, because there are no rules. There's no Monopoly board. There's no chessboard of life. It's a piece of slime. We're just wading through the slime. That's the game. It's a piece of slime. Whether you choose your creativity to be a direct act of protest against the system, or if it's just disturbing the accepted societal strata and systems by knitting a top, it's up to you. I support you either way. I think that's where I'm going to leave this. I think I've gone on for a long time. I'm so sorry if you were able to hear noises in the background. They've just turned off as I'm wrapping this up, which is perfect timing. So I'm sorry if you were able to hear rumblings. I also have to accept that I don't live in a quiet space, but my purpose is to spread the word of chaos. So I'm here spreading the word despite the noise and the rumblings. So if you want to know more about my chaos within order system, it's called the NPR method. It's an organizational system specifically for creative people like myself who have a brain wired to rebel, but also need to function. That information is on www.pensive.studio. And I also have an Instagram. It's pensive.studio. And please read the accompanying Substack article for more delicate insights into this. I feel like this was a rallying cry of some sort. I don't know, but that's how I feel. That's just how I feel. But yeah, there will be an accompanying Substack piece, which will be linked somewhere. Somewhere you'll find it. And I think that's everything. So thank you for listening, and I will see you in the next one.